Welcome to today's Orchestra Careers Conversation. I'm Sonia Thomes by day, and I guess now evening and weekend. I am the Vice President of Operations at the Nashville Symphony. And in my free time, I run OrchestraCareers.com with the mini team that I have, actually Brianna Owens, one of our panelists today, and Sarah Davidson. But I am so excited for this topic today, how to get your first job. And this might seem like a really obvious topic that you guys maybe are thinking a lot about, but we're going to kind of present it in a slightly different way. Certainly out there on the internet, you can learn a lot of things, and also probably in school and from friends, about how to write your resume, how to prepare a cover letter, what jobs you should be looking for, how to anticipate questions on interviews, what your network should look like. And those are all 100% critical things. And we're going to touch on some of those things today. But I think when I was thinking this morning a little bit more about why this topic is so important, the way we're talking about it today, is that you are going to need a mindset that is stronger than you maybe think you're going to need to really navigate this path. When I look back to when I was trying to get my first job after grad school, I remember now more fully that it was very isolating at times. I had a lot of self-doubt. At times I would be daydreaming about the job that I just hit submit for the application. And then other days I'd be like, I said, I'm done. I'm going to go serve coffee and just walk away from this thing. So it's such an emotional roller coaster. And I think we don't hear enough about that. So I am so grateful for our two panelists today, Brianna Owens and Evann Brantley, because they're willing to share not only their story, and this is a hot off the press story, and you're going to hear why, about how they got their first job, but also just the honesty and the transparency about their emotional journey and the mindsets that they needed to really navigate it well. So without further ado, I want to introduce our panelists. Evann, actually, I'll have you introduce yourself. What is your name? Where did you go to school? What is your first job? And when did you start it?
Thanks, Sonia. So I'm Evann Brantley. I am the manager of artistic administration for the Nashville Symphony currently, and I started my job 3 weeks ago, so very new. And previously, I went to college at FSU, Florida State University, and I got both my undergrad degree in business management and my graduate degree in arts administration from FSU. It was a great experience for me, and I can't say enough good about it.
Thank you. Brianna, so where did you go to school? What is your first job, and how long have you been in it?
So I went to Middle Tennessee State University in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. I got my undergrad in music industry, and I am the events and stewardship coordinator for the Nashville Symphony, and I started on Monday.
Excellent. Yeah, you've done it. You made it through week one. It's always an achievement these days to make it to Friday of a week. I still feel that way. So congratulations to both of you on your first job. So we're going to dive right in, and I'm just going to have a conversation with Evann and Brianna about some of the things that they've been through. And then we are going to have plenty of time for questions from you, the attendees. So I guess I want to go back to you, Evann. When did you start thinking about your career when you were a student?
Sure. So this whole journey actually started back in my senior year of high school when I first discovered arts administration as a career path. And I had this moment where I had heard of the title of somebody that was attending one of my concerts, and they were the general manager of the Dallas Symphony at the time. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, that's so cool. I didn't know that anybody could manage an orchestra. I didn't know that that was a career that you could have. And it was kind of this light bulb moment of like, oh my God, that would be really perfect for me, because I loved leadership. I loved music. And so I wanted to combine the two into a career. And so everything that I did from that point on was kind of in service of this dream of being an arts administrator. And so I decided to go to FSU, originally majoring in music because of that dream, because I knew that FSU had an arts admin program at the graduate level. And so I decided I'll just go ahead and get started and I'll already be there and work my way up to that degree. And so that's where majoring in business came from, because I thought that that would also be useful to me later on. And then every experience that I had, from working in the concert halls at FSU to returning to work with the Atlanta Youth Wind Symphony over the summers as a tour coordinator for them, and eventually a first internship with Sonia actually at the Nashville Symphony, really helped kind of shape my drive and my dream to be an arts administrator. It reaffirmed that this is what I wanted to do. And so this whole journey since about 2015, 2016 has everything that I've done, internships, education, all of it's been in service of this dream. So this has kind of been a long time coming for me.
Wow. Wow. So Brianna, how do you relate to that story? Is that similar or different?
Yeah, I definitely started thinking about it fairly early on. And I very distinctly remember I was a part of the Curb Youth Symphony. And that's when I started noticing the kind of behind the scenes work that was happening. Even for a youth symphony, I saw librarians, orchestra managers, and I was very interested in what they were doing. And then later on, I went to Tennessee Governor's School. I went to Interlochen Summer Arts Camp, and I just got so fully immersed in what these people were doing and started seeking them out. And I very distinctly remember going to a Nashville Symphony concert and looking through the program and like staring at all the staff names and just thinking, oh my gosh, I have got to find these people and talk to them. So that's when it really started being a priority for me and something that I was really thinking about.
So it sounds like both your paths, like every step kind of built on the last one. You were able to kind of just keep this forward motion. I feel like it's very much forward, but obviously it's not a straight line. So how did your concept of what you wanted to do, maybe I'll come back to you, Evan, kind of change, and where did you think you wanted to be? And then by the time you were really graduating from your master's degree, how had kind of your concept of the career you wanted changed?
Sure. So I think initially I had those big dreams of, saying, anybody who asked me, what's arts admin? What do you want to do with that? I would kind of say, oh, well, eventually, maybe I'll be the CEO of the LA Phil or something like that. And, these big lofty dreams of being that top leader at that organization. But with every experience that I had, it kind of helped me hone my interests into the area that I work in now, which is artist services. And realizing that, I needed to kind of break it down to a more micro level and figure out what I was interested in with that before I can work my way up to have those larger leadership positions eventually in my career later on. And so, especially with grad school really helped me reframe my thought process about arts admin and realize that it's such a broad field and that there are certain aspects of it that I wasn't as interested in. Like, for example, education and development are amazing areas in our field. And for me, it just wasn't a good fit because it didn't really light a fire under me like artist services and operations and that kind of work did. And so eventually, through all those internships and the education that I received, I kind of realized, oh, I really do want to be working with the artists directly and doing that kind of work, working on the agreements, making hotel reservations, setting up catering, things like that, because this hands-on, this actual tangible work is what really makes me happy in life. And that especially was true at the end of grad school. I had kind of been away from it for a little bit and I realized, oh my gosh, I miss doing this so much because I had been doing grants for a little bit and that was more of a desk job. And I really had felt like something was missing for a couple of years. And so that kind of helped me narrow my focus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's actually really important to experiment and explore, especially while you're still in college, with summer internships or working at festivals. And, try a summer in development and see if, try it on for a summer and see if it works. And if it doesn't, try something else. So Brianna, I know that you graduated back in December. So it's almost been a year now, and you've had a couple different jobs in the last part-time jobs in the last several months. So how does what did you really want to pursue as far as the job you thought you wanted, and how has that kind of evolved over the last year?
Yeah, so as much as I say I was getting very interested in the behind the scenes of the orchestra, at the forefront of everything, I had always said, I want to be a clarinet performer in any capacity. I want to, join the Army band, play in a professional orchestra, wherever they'll have me. I'm playing clarinet forever. And I very wholeheartedly said that and planned to go all the way through school and get my DMA in clarinet performance. But by the time I reached my junior year of college, it was really weighing on me. I was very fatigued by playing in so many ensembles and just practicing for hours a day. And that's when Sonia actually came to MTSU to talk. And I was just thinking that this is an omen. I need to pursue this, because just in this moment that I'm wanting to put my clarinet down and move on to something else, here's my connection. And of course, I sat in the front row of her talk and started communicating a bunch with her. But by the end of college, I had interned for the Tennessee Philharmonic, and I was their marketing assistant. So I did a lot of their social media. I started doing social media for Orchestra Careers, and I also did social media for Rising Tide Music Press. So I was really immersed in the marketing scene and trying to grow myself there. So when I graduated in December, I was just barreling towards any marketing job. That's where I thought I had wanted to be. And I was working at a music store when I graduated. I ended up getting a job at Naxos of America, and I was doing stuff in inventory, so it's totally different. But now I have ended up in events and stewardship position. So that's totally different than marketing. And honestly, I wouldn't have it any other way, because if I had centered my entire career around marketing like I thought I wanted to do, I would not have been able to be who I am in the capacity I am for Orchestra Careers, and I wouldn't be able to see everything that I get to see now for the Nashville Symphony behind the scenes.
Excellent. Okay, so now the main event. Okay, how did you do it? So I would love for each of you to share. Brianna, let's go back to you. What was the job search like when you were like, okay, I'm gonna do it? And you, what was the first steps you took? Like, take us through part of that journey.
Yeah, so when I graduated, I started applying to just random jobs, kind of anything that I thought I would be capable of doing. And throughout the whole job search, I've probably applied to like 60 or 70 jobs, if I'm being honest. But I ended up quitting my music store job in February. And I didn't have anything lined up, but I had to get out of retail. So almost immediately, I was contacted by Naxos of America because I had applied for a few jobs there. And I think going into that, that was a part-time job that eventually turned full-time. I was only there for a couple months, and I knew that this was kind of my transitional job. I'm just doing this to pay the bills until Nashville Symphony starts hiring. And so it happened really fast. I started working there in March. Nashville Symphony started posting jobs in April. And so that was like the grind time. And I probably applied to 10 different jobs with the Nashville Symphony over the course of the summer. And I interviewed for 4. I actually got called to interview for 2 of those and ended up getting the very last job that I was called to interview for.
So when you and I have talked about this, Brianna, you really wanted to be in Nashville, because one of the things I talk with students who I get to support on this journey is, are you really particular about where you want to live, or are you going to search anywhere? And I think that really can shape your job search. And it's really important to ask yourself that question. Do I want to live in a particular city, or do I not care? Like, send me anywhere, And so for you, you were really focused on only Nashville. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So Evann, I want to toss it back over to you. So what was your job search like? And were you looking at different cities, or were you kind of ready to go anywhere?
Yeah, so for me, I had about 3 cities that I was looking at initially, and that was Orlando, Florida, Atlanta, Georgia, and Nashville, Tennessee. And I was kind of oscillating between looking at different organizations in those 3 places, because I knew that I either had friends or family, loved ones of some sort in all three of those cities, and that I would be okay starting out in any of those three places. But very quickly, once I had started to kind of look around, I graduated in the spring, and it was about April when I was done with school. And I noticed that there weren't a lot of the job opportunities that I was looking for that were open at the time. And so it was a bit discouraging at first, because I was like, oh my gosh, where are all the jobs? And so it was hard, being narrowed into those three places, because I kind of started to think, should I be looking broader? Should I be looking at the whole country? Should I be willing to move to somewhere where I don't know anybody? And I ended up kind of holding fast to my rule of those three places, and eventually dropped Orlando, because I realized that, I really wanted to be in Nashville of all places. And so I kind of focused in on Nashville and Atlanta just as my two. And I probably applied to 10 or 15 jobs once I started seriously looking, and only got a call for this one. And so it really was just kind of meant to be, I think, because none of the other ones, I still haven't received an email back from a lot of them to this day. So it was kind of discouraging, but I think it ended up putting me where I needed to be.
So I want to just hover here for a second, because Brianna, you said 60 to 70 applications. Evan, you just said, dozens of applications. Okay, what was that like every time you hit submit? I mean, and what was going through your brain at that time? What was each day like? It was can you tell us a little bit? Evan, we'll come back to you.
It was nerve-wracking. I think every time you put your heart and soul into an application, especially if you have to write a cover letter or do something very specific like that, you spend time and energy on it, and you've put a lot into it. You've invested a lot into it. And so you really hope that it'll turn into something, and that the people on the other side will recognize the value that you believe that you have and that you could add to the organization. But it really does, it can get to you if you don't kind of manage your mental health in the way that, you need to, because it can be discouraging to not hear back from places, and to kind of be waiting and hoping and dwelling on the hope that they'll call you back. And like me, for some of these jobs, they might not. And that's just the reality, because you don't know who else applied. You don't know how many other applications they're looking at. And so you've done all you can do, and it's out of your hands.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Brianna, does that resonate with you? What was it like to 60 or 70, you must have been doing several a week at that point.
Yeah, I was probably applying to at least one job a day for quite a few weeks there, when I was getting really desperate and wanting to find something. But I think, like Evan said, when you have to do a cover letter, it kind of changes everything. And even if you don't have to do a cover letter, if there's a space for you to put a cover letter, because anytime I've ever skipped that over, I never hear back. But if I put a cover letter there, they're at least going to send me some sort of rejection to let me know. So it's definitely a little bit exhausting to really write a good cover letter. But I felt like every time I did, I really did sit down and put everything that I had on the table, and really looked through the job description, matched that with things I had already done, things that I know I can do. So it's a timely process, but it will get you so far. But that being said, it was nerve-wracking and it was exhausting. And towards the end there, I had received 4 rejections from the place I had really wanted to be. And I think that was the most discouraging part, is all the rejections that you're gonna get. And sometimes they're not even personal ones. Like, a lot of them I got were just the basic LinkedIn rejection email, and they just kind of insert your name. Sometimes people will call you and at least tell you that you did a great job or give you some feedback. And if they don't, I highly recommend that you ask for it, because it's really good to know. It'll improve your experience going forward. But I think managing your mental health during a very thorough job search is so crucial, because you're going to go through such a range of emotions, and there's excitement and you find a job you really like and you get very emotionally attached to it because you can't see yourself doing anything else. And I would say that if you do that with jobs, like I did that with jobs, try and take a step back, because you will damage your mental health if you think, this job is the end all be all. Take everything in stride, be open to these new experiences and get a lot of sleep, talk to your friends, please do not isolate, go to therapy, have your ice cream, do what you need to do. It is very important.
Yeah, that was going to be one of my questions. Thanks for mentioning that, Brianna. Is like, who did you reach out to during this time? Because it's really important, and it can be you can feel very alone, because when it's all said and done, your friends and family are cheering you on, but it still feels like it's your journey, your kind of like, carry load to carry. And so who were those people that you reached out during that time, and what was the most encouraging things that they could say or do, in case we've got a friend that might be going through this?
So I, of course, my fiance was there through everything, and every single emotion I felt, he was right there. But of course, I have an amazing friend group. And so I would try not to wear out a single person, because seriously, every day was hard. And so I would kind of switch from friend to friend and try to take, what they had to say to me. I'd reach out to my godfather, my mom, family, friends, honestly, anybody who was willing to listen, I would talk to them about it. But I think it can get difficult at a certain point, because sometimes there's nothing that they can do for you, and there's nothing that they can say that's really going to help anymore, because it's in our nature, if somebody's upset, for us to want to fix it for them and do something. But I think if you're going through this and you need to advocate for yourself, or you have a friend that's going through this, you don't have to say a thing. Just say, I'm sorry. Just be there and listen, because most of the time I didn't want anybody to say anything to me, because it kind of got old. My godfather saying, well, just be patient and hold on, and it's all going to work out. And I mean, thankfully, I wholeheartedly believed it was going to work out, but I was being very impatient about it, and it's hard to be patient about it. So I was kind of in survival mode. Hang out with your friends, go do fun stuff. Please get out of the house and get out in nature, because it will make everything so much easier for you while you're in this kind of survival mode area.
Evan, how about you? Who did you reach out to? Who was helping you through this process?
So I think from a professional standpoint, Sonia, you and I had a couple of conversations when I was in the thick of things, and that was really helpful to me, because I feel like ever since that internship, this mentorship that you have with me, it has been so valuable. And I think hearing you say, like, you're ready for this, you're not crazy, like you're not underqualified, like you're ready to take this on, was really valuable for me. But I think, on a more day-to-day basis, my mom was incredibly supportive of me because I was living with her at the time. And, sometimes you'd think that, if you're living with a parent, they want to kick you out as soon as possible, but she was really kind about everything and didn't put any sort of pressure on me to speed up the process, because she knew that it was out of my hands and I was doing the best that I could. And so she just, kind of sat with me, watched Netflix with me, and would just talk about it with me from time to time. But I think it's just having that support, like Brianna was saying, where, people in your life are just there for you to spend time with you and get your mind off of things is really important, and not putting any more like extra stress or pressure on you, because when you have that on top of your own pressure that you're putting on yourself, it can be really hard to bear. And I think having that network is so important.
So there was one other aspect I want to touch on before we open up for questions, which is kind of the timeline that I think, you were talking about, from when you hit submit on the application to the job that you actually are sitting in now, till when you actually started the job. It sounded like it was, it's varying lengths, and there's kind of no rhyme or reason to how long it actually takes, but give us the details. Evan, I'm going to come back to you. Can you give us a sense of the timeline? Like, how long did it take?
It is a lot longer than you'd expect. My process lasted about 3 months total for this one position. And I saw the posting in late June and applied only a couple days after I had initially seen the posting. Didn't hear back anything for a month, heard about getting the first interview over the phone after that month, and then had that interview and nothing for another month. And then found out that I had made the final round of a series of interviews, and that all happened pretty quickly over the span of about 2 weeks. And then another week or two passed, and it was late September by the time I actually got the call to offer me the job. So it was a long process, probably longer than I anticipated initially when I was applying for jobs.
Brianna, same question. What was the timeline like for you?
For my current job, it was really weird. So I will say I did go through several different interview processes where I got fairly far. And I felt like, the average time to hear that I would even get an interview from when I applied is a month. It would definitely be a month before I'd even hear back, let's schedule an interview. And then you probably have an interview in the next week. And then it would probably be maybe another month before you hear anything back about a second interview or, a rejection or anything like that. So the job that I was offered, honestly, I felt like I kind of went in through the back door because I didn't apply for it. I actually was called. So I've definitely seen several different response times, and the one that I think was probably the most normal is the one that I interviewed for right before I interviewed for the job I currently have. And I applied. They were trying to fill the position fairly quickly. So they actually got back to me the same day. I interviewed 2 days later, and then I didn't hear anything for a month and a half. And then I received a rejection. And then I had already been offered this job. And on Monday, when I started, the person who actually got that job I had interviewed for started with me on Monday. So if that gives you any sense, I started that, I think it was late or early August, late July. So it can definitely be so much longer than you would ever expect. And even for this one where I was called to interview, I interviewed, they said they'd get back to me in 24 hours. They didn't get back to me until the next week. And then I was starting 3 weeks from when they offered me the job. So definitely extend your expectations on the timeline as much as possible.
Yes. And as I've been doing a lot of hiring on where I sit, and we were just talking about this before we got on the call today, is just keep in mind that the people who are doing the hiring are also doing their job. And so the job search process is critically important, but it is also having to be smushed in the corners of your day, trying to do the job that you're hired to do as well. And so I think that we talked a little bit about now seeing the other side of that perspective, and it's really important, but it's very hard to when I think about this tempo that you just talked about, this, like, I apply and then don't hear anything for a month. You think about the adrenaline you have when you hit submit, right? And you're daydreaming, and maybe you're looking on Zillow. I don't know. You're like, okay, I can see myself there. And then a month has to go by. So be kind to yourself. I mean, we need Post-its all over our house, probably. Just say, be kind. It's going to be okay. Go eat some ice cream. I like support cookies personally. Yeah, I just think that that's really important. And thank you so much, Brianna and Evan, for sharing those details. So I'm going to press pause there and see what questions our attendees might have for our panelists.
I can just unmute and start, I guess. Thank you both for sharing, and first of all, for the opportunity just to be here. This has been so great. So I resonated with almost everything that y'all said, and it stinks because I feel like I'm very similar in the fact that I am dead set on a location and organization. And I guess my question is on timeline. I had no idea about what y'all said. That's so scary about, the month and all of that. But it is October, and I don't graduate till April, and I'm already obsessively checking websites because as arts administrators, we love control and control of our own lives. So I guess I'm just kind of wondering your advice on how soon is it to start applying? You know, if I can start by summer. I literally see like my dream positions posted right now, and I'm like, I am still in college. So if you could speak to that.
I'll jump in. I think the thing that comes to mind, Rachel, thank you for sharing that, is you do have actually a little bit of the advantage of time, because I would love for you to set the stage for when you're ready to apply. So if there's an organization that you want to be a part of, who do you know there? Who do you know who knows someone there? Like, how can you start to just pave the way for when you're going to apply? Because I think you're right. Realistically, right now, it might be really not the right thing, but maybe it would. I don't know. I mean, what's the worst thing you could do? Apply and nothing happens, but or something does happen, or they're like, you know what? So awesome to meet you. If you get an interview, they're getting to meet you, and maybe that's not the right job, but that the next time you apply 6 months from now, they're going to be like, oh yeah, that's Rachel, and we already know her. So I would challenge you to think about, this is the paving the way for you to be able to drive on the road right now. And who do you know? What relationships can you build now? How can you just express interest to learn more about the organization? And just, be honest, say, hey, I'm getting ready to graduate. I love your organization, and I'm really excited to try to join the team. I think that those are some things that come to my mind, but I don't know, Brianna, Evann, what you're thinking.
Yeah, I think I was going to say I don't think it's too early to start looking, especially with how long it took both of us in between each phase. You might think, oh, wow, they're probably looking to hire this like right now, so maybe I shouldn't apply because I'm not going to graduate for a few more months. But you never know. I mean, it may seem like it's a really urgent thing on their end, but you don't know what they're thinking behind closed doors, or how much time they do have to wait for the right person to come along. And so I think just put yourself out there and try for your dream positions. And like Sonia said, the worst that could happen is maybe you don't hear back, or maybe it's a rejection, but at least you tried and you're getting experience writing the cover letter, submitting your resume, maybe even doing an interview. And I think that the practicing those things is always really valuable, because you never know how it's going to go until it happens. So
I definitely think that you're in a very good spot right now, and bravo to you for wanting to be so prepared. I was exactly the same way. And I definitely, even in my junior year of college, was like, well, maybe I should just apply so they see my name. And you said you're dead set on an organization. I was dead set on Nashville Symphony or bust. Like, I was really wanting that or nothing. So really get to know the people in the organization. Like Allison said in the chat, do some volunteer work. That is real. I'm realizing now how closely certain departments work with the volunteers. That will absolutely get you ahead of the game. And really, me knowing Sonia was such a big contributor, because then I got to meet other people and talk to other people. And at this point, I had interviewed in almost every department. And so, by the time I had reached my last interview, it's like, all right, either you're going to give me a job, or I'm going to bust in. I'm going to break into the building and sit at a desk and make it happen. So if you go in with that kind of mindset and really get to know the people in the organization, that is very helpful. So start right now.
And Brianna, you already know like 10 members of the staff, because you've already interviewed with them and you just finished your first week. Allison, I see your hand is raised. Go ahead and ask your question.
Morning all. Sorry, I'm in Melbourne, Australia, so it's early on a Sunday morning for me. Two subjects maybe if you could talk to. One is Melbourne. We actually came out of hard lockdown on Friday. We still have a lot of restrictions. There's working from home. Shops aren't open except for the essential ones. So I actually started my process of career change into arts administration at the end of 2019. And by March 2020, we were in lockdown. So basically my whole time of trying to change career has been in COVID. I'm just wondering, in terms of America, I think you're broadly free, for want of a better term, able to do whatever you want to do when you want to do it, no curfews, etc. How long did it take for the jobs to reappear on the websites, etc.? How long did it take for that job market to start to happen again? Because fingers crossed, that might start to happen, 2 years down the track for me. It might start to happen. That's my main query. The other thing I was going to say was volunteer, go and get a casual job with the organization, talk to the people so that you get known in there. Yeah, thank you. There's my thing.
Yeah, thank you, Allison. So I can speak to that because I was working full time at the Nashville Symphony throughout the pandemic. And, we started the process. Unfortunately, we had to furlough 130 employees at the Nashville Symphony in July of 2020. And I would say by March of 2021, we were really putting together plans to start to ask back, rehire the furloughed employees, or if we've restructured, post new positions. So really by April, May, June, even now there are still 100 jobs almost every day. I check the League of American Orchestras website, a job board. That's just one website to check here in America. There's 100 jobs with orchestras off the stage, like admin jobs, open right now. And it's been really, it crept up and it was been really steady for the last several months. But just to put it in perspective, I think it was May 14th, and I remember this date for a reason, here in Nashville, all capacity restrictions were lifted. At a certain point by July, they're like, you don't have to wear your mask anymore. But then by August, everybody had their mask back on. But that was also pre-vaccine, but I got my vaccine in May. So it was kind of like by May, June, July, it was really picking up because everyone wanted to open their season. Our season here opens in September, with the school year. And so I don't know if there's kind of like a typical start of the season, for the art seasons in Melbourne. Like ours is all September around here. Is it similar in Melbourne?
So the main two orchestras in Melbourne, the Melbourne Symphony Orchestra and the Orchestra Victoria, they're the two main professional orchestras. They both start their seasons at the end of January. They'll start rehearsal mid-January so that they're up and flying again. That would be normal. I don't know if they'll do it differently next year, because we've had 19 months. I think they've done half a dozen public performances, and for us, our summer, so last December, January, February, we had a little bit of a lifting of restrictions, and our main performance venue in Melbourne, our concert hall, it has a capacity of about 5,000 people, and they were able to do concerts to 500.
Mm-hmm.
So a small orchestra, 30 or 40 players, to a 500 audience in a 5,000 odd capacity venue. That was as good as it got for us. And then it all shut back down again at the end of February. So it's normally it would be they'd start rehearsing mid-January and start performing by the end of January to audiences. Because we've had so long not playing, they may do it different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
they're talking about.
Yeah, well, I saw on the social media, Melbourne was opening, and they were showing like people yelling and cheering in the streets. And I was thinking of you and our friends down in Melbourne, actually. So I think this is a great, hopefully this is a great step in the right direction, and that arts organizations start to feel more confident and more supported, that they can start to think about doing things again. And in the meantime, they're going to need people who can work remotely, and they're going to need people to start paving that way for engagement and whether it's fundraising or marketing or getting the word out, or just straight up like, how are we going to actually do this now? So many plans are put on hold for so long, and it's going to be a lot of strategy to try to figure out how to emerge. I think here in America, a lot of our orchestras have opened their seasons now, and so it's really an exciting place to be. And we'll be thinking of you, that's just a few months now from where you are. Are there any more questions from our attendees? Dan.
When both of you were looking at cities to live in and organizations to work with, what were some of the qualities and characteristics that you're looking for in both?
Evan, I think you should go first.
Okay. So for me, I think something that was really important as far as cities go is a place where there's a lot going on that would be great to be a young person and a young professional in. And so I was really looking at larger cities. I didn't really want to leave the Southeast because this is just where I've grown up. And as I mentioned earlier in the conversation, I just have connections in most of the cities that I was looking in, so that I had a soft place to land, if I had a crisis or something. Like my sister lives here in Nashville, which has been great. But I think, having a city where there's a lot to do, there's a lot going on, it's growing and changing, and there's just lots happening, I think was really important. Also important for the arts too, because we are a source of entertainment and tourism. And so to be in a place like Nashville or Atlanta, where there is that bustling activity, was really important to me. And then as far as organizations go, something that was important was just a good culture. And I know that's a broad term, but I think especially, for example, with our organization, the Nashville Symphony, everybody has been so welcoming and so ready to just accept us into our new roles, and they're so excited for us to be there with them to help out. And so I think it's been great because everybody's, no question is dumb. Every question is valid, and they're ready to have us and ready to have us join the team, and welcomed us with open arms, which was huge.
I definitely didn't have to consider this as heavily as Evan did, because I'm actually born and raised in Tennessee, grew up in Cookeville, Tennessee, moved to Murfreesboro, Tennessee to go to college. And then actually my fiance started working on Music Row about 2 years ago. So I thought, I would also really like to be in downtown Nashville, because I had always loved the city. And I always loved, how many people were down there, and that the Nashville Symphony was smack dab in the middle of it, and the Country Music Hall of Fame is right there. It just felt like such a home for me because of how much I just love the music community. So if you have a city that makes you feel that way, I think if I didn't go to Nashville, I would have gone to Chicago. So, try and weigh those options there. But as far as organizations go, I definitely had really a heavy desire for nonprofits, because I felt like all the nonprofits I applied for were doing things that I felt very passionately about. And if it wasn't music, I wanted to go do something with animals. So go find an organization that does work that makes your heart happy, because that is the most important thing, is nurturing your soul as well as making some money.
Well, and what I'll say, Brianna, too, is finding an organization that you connect with how they're showing up in the world is really important. And here's why: because I, as the employer, I, as the hiring manager, I'm going to be able to sense that. And if you're sitting in an interview and you're like, yeah, I'd really love to work for this organization, and it's like, really? Are you really sure you want, but if you're like, I have been on the path to bringing orchestral music into the community. And so when I saw this job open at the Nashville Symphony, that married with my skills as a communicator and a strategist, it's the perfect fit. I mean, it has to be kind of an organization that fits on the path that you're on, as opposed to you conforming to a path just to be a part of the organization. And I don't know if that makes sense, but it really can come across in an interview if you connect as the candidate with the mission of the organization. And why that's so important to me, the employer, is because it's going to make for a great motivational fit. And what I say when I say that, I mean that you're going to be committed to the mission of the organization, then that other duties as assigned line on your job description has more value to it, right? You're there for the purpose and the mission of the organization. We just lived through a pandemic, and there was a lot of parts of my job and a lot of other duties as assigned, i.e. COVID protocols, that I've had to take on. And so, but if I wasn't connected to the mission of the Nashville Symphony, I would have left a long time ago. So I really think finding that city that honors you and your lifestyle and what you need as a person, because that is most important. And then an organization that you really connect with, that you can see yourself being a part of, contributing to, that you have something to say and something to think about how they're doing things. That's going to be a really great combination. So I don't know if we have any other questions from our attendees, because I have one more for our panelists. So Evann, Brianna, just thank you so much for sharing your story. And, you've told us a lot about what it was like. But I was wondering, the way I wanted to ask this question is if you could talk Brianna, if you could talk to your senior self, what is the words of encouragement? What are the tips and tricks that you would have told yourself now living on this side of things?
I would say definitely I would just tell myself to be patient. And as much as it's really hard to get that point across nowadays, I would tell myself to be patient. And I would also just say, really take care of your mental health. It is so important to do everything you possibly can to take care of yourself and learn how to set boundaries. I feel like once I started learning how to really set boundaries, it was so important. So if I could have known that earlier, it definitely would have helped.
Evann, that second year master's, Evann, what would you say to her now?
Well, I think first year master's would be more accurate, because that was pre-pandemic, and my perception of where I would be changed so much, especially between that first and that second year. And so I think just telling her it's okay to not know everything in the moment, and it's okay if your plan gets thrown out the window and you have to pivot and you have to try something different. Because I was definitely somebody who loved having everything. I had the 5-year plan. I had everything kind of planned out and organized. I had my color-coded spreadsheets and things like that. And all of it was thrown out the window in a matter of a day in March of 2020. And so I think just telling her, slow down, it's going to be okay. And you're going to do it. You're going to be on the other side, and you will be an arts administrator doing the thing that you've always wanted to do.
Yes. That's so awesome. Okay. Before we close out, is there anything, Brianna or Evann, that we didn't touch on that you are like, you guys just need to know about how to get your first job?
I think just believe in yourself. I mean, I know that sounds cheesy and cliche, but I think you have to realize that you're your own biggest advocate, and you need to wake up every morning and look in the mirror and encourage yourself the way that a friend would, and tell yourself, I'm supposed to be here. I'm supposed to be applying for these jobs. I'm supposed to be in these interviews. I belong here, and I belong in this field, and, encourage yourself in that way, because I think it can work wonders on your mental health and on the whole process. And if you walk into an interview with that level of confidence and knowing in your heart of hearts that you truly belong there, I think on the other side of things, the interviewer will be able to tell, and it'll come across. So definitely do that.
I definitely wholeheartedly agree with believing in yourself, because by the time you're on rejection number 10 and you're thinking, why did I even try to go to school because this is useless? You have to take that moment and really truly realize how valuable you are. And if that means you have to talk to another person to actually physically speak it so that you understand all of that value that you have to offer, and wake up every day, do a power pose. It is hard to maintain believing in yourself, but the more that you keep putting it out there into the world, the easier it is going to carry you through. And I will also say, don't be afraid to ask for help. Find a mentor. Absolutely find a mentor, and don't be afraid to make them look at every cover letter you ever write, because I feel like all of my cover letters were just pristine, and I definitely made Sonia look at most of them. So get a mentor, ask for help.
Oh, thank you guys so much. I put your emails in the chat, because if our attendees think of, or anyone watching this on YouTube later, think of any questions, please reach out to Brianna and Evan. But thank you so much for your time today. If you enjoyed this conversation, we've got another one next month, November 20th. And there's intention to all of this. It's called Summer 2022, and it's essentially going to be a job fair for summer jobs, seasonal jobs, like at festivals, just things that you can find out about how to apply for them, when to look out for them, so you can keep building that resume towards getting your first job. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram, all the things, reach out anytime. And if there's anything that we can do for you, or if you're in need of just some information about a specific topic that we have not covered yet, we're starting to think about our spring programming for these conversations. And so you can just email me at info@orchestracareers.com. I'd love to hear your ideas. Okay. Well, thanks so much for joining us. Hope you have a great afternoon, and we'll see you at a next conversation.